Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we are unpacking a truly fascinating analysis of human desire, physical appearance, and the hidden, almost invisible mechanics of our relationships. We'll be using some highly relatable and frankly brilliant metaphors drawn straight from our source material to explore why we're so drawn to beauty. But more importantly, we'll look at why beauty alone is absolutely never enough to make us stay. So let's dive right in.
We're going to start with a rather curious scenario presented by the source. I want you to picture this. Someone hands you a massive, beautifully cut diamond. Naturally, your reaction is going to be explosive joy, right? Your mouth drops open, you're totally thrilled. But what happens if that exact same person gives you an identically sized diamond a month later? Your reaction is going to be noticeably flatter. You might just be like, oh wow, another one. And a month after that, you'd barely have a reaction at all. Why does the exact same object suddenly fail to generate that same happiness? Well, it's because we've already completely absorbed its novelty. All right, let's jump into section 1, humanity's endless thirst.
To really illustrate this rapid energy absorption, the source gives us this pretty hilarious cultural contrast in how people visit museums. Think about a typical Western tourist. The source notes that they tend to visit a museum, absorb just a fraction of the information, and then they'll repeatedly return to slowly taking the rest over multiple visits. But contrast that with Korean tourists, who are described as having incredibly fast sensors. They'll walk into a museum, rapidly scan the room, instantly absorb the complete essence of the exhibits, and boom, they never need to return. Once the energy and design of a space or an object are fully absorbed, the thirst is quenched. The novelty is permanently gone.
Which leads us perfectly into section 2. Why are we attracted?
Okay, so subconsciously, when we're seeking a partner, physical beauty acts as this incredibly powerful initial signal. We inherently treat beauty as an indicator of a quote-unquote good product. We essentially wire our brains to assume that an attractive exterior absolutely guarantees high-quality inner characteristics. We expect that this beautiful person is going to think beautifully, act beautifully, and ultimately be really helpful and beneficial to our own lives. At the end of the day, beauty is simply the magnet that drives that initial curiosity.
But, and this is a huge but, the source is remarkably clear about the strict limitations of this magnet. Just like that second diamond we talked about, the initial rush of an attractive face wears off the second we've absorbed its novelty. People will definitely arrive for the outer beauty, but they are only going to stay if the main game, which is true inner substance and character, actually begins. If that main game doesn't start, the connection just abruptly ends.
Moving right along to section 3, the real purpose of plastic surgery. The source maps out what is essentially a really tragic behavioral loop here. Imagine an individual alters their appearance because they feel their popularity fading, and they just want to pull people back in. And you know what? It works, temporarily. The novelty energy of a new face definitely draws a crowd. But then, during an actual conversation, a profound lack of inner content or intellectual depth is quickly revealed. Inevitably, the people leave, dropping the individual right back into a state of profound emptiness. And then, they're tempted to undergo surgery again, completely restarting this exact same hollow cycle. And you know, this cycle isn't just about surgery. It totally mirrors our modern obsession with social media. We see individuals frantically chasing fleeting popularity, whether that's posting highly curated photos or literally altering their faces just to get people to look at them. But when that artificial attention inevitably fades, purely because there is no substantial main game to keep the audience engaged, the individual faces crushing depression and this feeling of total isolation.
Next up, section 4, osteoporosis of the inner self.
To explain exactly why these artificially attracted people always leave, the source uses this brilliantly witty medical metaphor, osteoporosis of the soul. Think about it. Just as physical osteoporosis leaves your bones hollow and fragile, ready to snap under pressure, osteoporosis of the soul means a person possesses a pretty exterior, but a profound, cavernous lack of inner substance. If you rely solely on your looks but have literally zero conversational depth, your relationships are going to rapidly collapse. Why? Because the structural integrity of your character is entirely hollow.
So, what does this actually look like in reality? Well, initially, expectations are sky high, totally driven by that beautiful exterior. But once the couple actually starts talking and those low-grade, shallow thoughts are revealed, that illusion instantly shatters. This jarring disconnect leads to endless bickering and fighting. And, ultimately,
the partner leaves. They often go out seeking someone who might actually be less physically attractive, but is far richer in character, depth, and substance.
This brings us to Section 5, God's Domain and Evolution.
Now, you might be thinking the source is going to completely condemn cosmetic surgery based on all this, right? Actually, no. It completely challenges the ancient taboo that the human body is strictly the domain of the heavens and must never be touched. It suggests that utilizing modern tools to modify ourselves isn't a defiance of nature at all. It's actually a programmed part of our current evolutionary stage. It's just where our human operating system is currently at.
Let's look at the timeline here. Historically, in the ancient era, the belief was super rigid. The body is strictly God's domain. Fast forward to our modern era, and altering the body has become a widely accepted tool for social connection and generating that initial magnetism we talked about. But here is the most important part, the future era. While physical modification is a totally natural progression of human capability, it's really just a stepping stone. True human evolution ultimately requires matching that physical change with serious inner spiritual and intellectual growth.
Which brings us to our final core concept. Section 6. Condition for true beauty.
The strict mandate provided by the source here is incredibly clear and absolutely uncompromising. It says, you must live up to your new face. If you make the choice to utilize modern medicine to upgrade your physical exterior, the source argues that you are absolutely, literally obligated to upgrade your actions, your intellect, and your character to match that new, higher aesthetic value. You simply cannot put a cheap, empty interior behind a premium exterior.
So, what's the ultimate solution to break this tragic loop? It's surprisingly simple. You have to prioritize filling your inner self with knowledge and substantial content. You need to focus on being genuinely helpful and beneficial to the people who are naturally drawn to you. When your inner substance is rich, you break that endless cycle of superficial physical fixes, and you become truly indispensable to others. You start to realize that real, lasting magnetism requires absolutely no scalpels because people are finally staying for the main game.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to think about. The next time you or anyone else seeks a superficial upgrade, whether that's a physical procedure or even just a newly curated social media persona, ask yourself, are you truly prepared to change your actions and your intellect to match? Because without that inner substance, without that main game, the audience will always, eventually, walk away. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the true mechanics of attraction. Keep exploring the substance beneath the surface, and I'll catch you in the next one.